There are many different stories about Jeffrey Epstein and the government response to his case, but this one is a real doozy. The Miami Herald's Julie Brown, who you might have seen on this program, has an absolute bombshell about how the Epstein files show there were an unusual number of bags of shredded documents removed from Epstein's jail just days after his death. That alone is suspicious. A corrections officer, though, was so concerned that they called the secret FBI tip line and said they'd, quote, never seen this amount of bags of shredded documents coming out to be put in the dumpster. The officer was concerned about the after-action group that came in to look into the death. Just to tell you how this works, usually investigative teams do not immediately shred documents and evidence, they collect evidence. The FBI records state that the caller found it, quote, suspicious that an after-action team charged with investigating would be shredding huge amounts of paperwork. That is an understatement. A corrections officer later wrote a memo to the FBI saying you might want to investigate why those employees are destroying records. And jails sometimes use inmates for certain physical tasks. The Herald reporting an inmate at the jail was told to take bags of shredded material to the rear gate, throw them in a dumpster. The inmate said, reportedly, quote, they're shredding everything. On top of that, the files show that there were whistleblower accounts, a letter to a judge, and U.S. attorneys' staff who also viewed this as suspicious at the very least, a potential crime or obstruction at most. Molly and Maya are back with us. When you hear that the feds and investigators are the ones doing the shredding, what does that tell you?
Something ain't right. That's my formal legal opinion on the matter. Now, this is really how can I say it? An astounding story, astounding, to have investigators actually, first of all, anytime you're shredding a document in law enforcement, you're supposed to be doing it pursuant to a document policy. You have a retention policy about what you keep, how long you keep it, how it's stored. So the mere fact that there's just this massive amount of shredding happening in and of itself is odd, because it's obviously not happening in the regular course of just a document retention policy. That you're handing them over to inmates to take out to the trash, and even the inmates going, this isn't normal. I mean, I don't even know what to say then. This stinks to high heaven.
And Molly, we've covered the jail part of this. Even if there's not documented foul play regarding Epstein's death, which is something that Congress now thinks is a valid question to investigate, we already know there were two corrections officers who were indicted and the charges later dropped. There were questions about malfeasance and hiding whether rules were broken. Again, even without foul play, you had a high-profile detainee, you failed to do the checks, there was video failure, there were other questions about financial misconduct. So as someone who's covered this story, when you look at this, that the government's first instinct was to hide tracks and basically destroy evidence, what does that tell you?
Yeah, look, it's the largest, if we just pull back for a minute, largest sex trafficking case that we know of, probably in American history. Todd Blanche says more than 1,200 victims, children, girls. And we have a government that at every point either acts suspiciously or acts negligently. At every point you have, they never searched Zorro Ranch. Huh? They didn't, with the dump of the documents, they're missing 302s. These, you have victims saying, I know I sat for interviews, where are they? Right? We have videos, we have transcripts, we have all sorts of stuff that we know is missing from the victims. We have Thomas Massie with a list of 230 names, okay, that the victims have put together. So, I mean, it's just, there's so much smoke here. It's so suspicious. Like, what? I mean, how is that possible?
And the U.S. Attorney's Office, we know from the Epstein files, had emails, as I mentioned in the setup, where they said, well, maybe we can go get the shredded docs. We can look at this. But ultimately, it was minimized over to the watchdog, the Inspector General, which does reports, but Maya, they don't actually pursue crimes, which means it was very quickly downgraded as not potential obstruction. Does that seem right to you or a problem?
Well, look, I really hesitate to to have a legal opinion on something from news stories. Let me just state
Respect.
that, right? So, I
can just get out of here.
Yeah, you can leave.
News story? What are you-
Well, I mean, because the one thing when you have any kind of legal case is there's all kinds of
Sure.
information
No, I appreciate
that
it.
the press does not
Fair.
have.
Right.
And it would be unfair to have a legal opinion in the absence of having access to more information. It stinks to high heaven, to Molly's point, and this goes back to the fact that there should be really aggressive transparency here. I do want to say this because coming from the civil rights community, we have been complaining about deaths in custody for a long time.
Yeah.
And half of the deaths in custody are suicides, half.
Right.
And half of those are people who haven't done what they're supposed to do as employees in those Bureau of Prisons. And so to your point, we don't know what the motives are, and we don't know all the facts. It's wrong. It happens all the time. To a lot of people who don't get news coverage, we should care about that. And we should be asking for aggressively bipartisan oversight of this. I do want to say that it is critical that we remember the true victims here.
Yeah.
And that's the women.